Anime Vanguards has officially been out for 11 months now, meaning that next month will mark the 1 year anniversary. So I figured over this next month, I would go back and look at some of the updates and more importantly, look at the older units to see how they have aged over time, since power creep in AV is definitely much different than most tower defense games. And today we will be starting off with Update 0, or better known as the official release of Anime Vanguards. And in this update, we're given a total of 35 units. This consists of 10 rare units, 10 epic units, 6 legendary units, 6 mythic units, 1 exclusive unit, and then 2 secret units. The 10 rare units we were given on release are Ichigo, Joe, John, Luffy, Naruto, Goku, Rukia, and Sanji, Sasuke, and Vegeta. And out of all 10 of these, the only 2 that are worth talking about are John and Sasuke. And the reason why John is somewhat usable is because he is the cheapest placement unit in the game and also has 6 placements, making him good for Yuha. And then Sasuke was, during the early days, a really good shield breaker because Burn did used to break shield. However, it was very overpowered for Paragon and it would get nerfed, which is why Burn no longer breaks shields. So, yeah. Now we have the 10 epic units, which are Speedwagon, Shinji, Piccolo, Kakashi, Killua, Inosuke, Genos, Zenitsu, Gaara, and Crocodile. This time around, there's 3 epic units we can talk about, and obviously we have Speedwagon, who is still one of the 2 money units to this day, Crocodile, and then Killua. Speedwagon is self-explanatory, and like I said, one of 2 money units, so he's still going to be very, very important even today. And then we have Crocodile, who was the first ever slow unit in the game, which is still kind of surprising because the only other slow unit we would end up getting for a while is Diavolo, who not only was a Vanguard, but came out update 1.5, so he was the only slow unit we had for a while. And then finally we have Killua, and once again, similar to Sasuke, he was really good during the early days of AV because he was a very good shield breaker. On top of that, he also stunned enemies, so he was a pretty good support during the early days, but obviously since then, not too good. The only ones that are really still used here are obviously going to Speedwagon, and then essentially John, whenever people want to run you up. Moving on, we have the 6 legendaries, which are Goku Black, Kizaru, Itachi, Grinjoun, Gon, and Pain. Now, with the legendary units, I would say none of these are really good anymore. Typically, with the rare units and epic units, we typically have at least a good support. However, none of these legendaries were at all good. They were pretty much all DPS units, with the exception of Pain, who did Repulse. He was the first ever unit to do Repulse. However, we were given many Repulse units over AV's life cycle, versus with Crocodile, we have not been given very many slow units. So, unfortunately, none of these units are really worth talking about. Except for Grimjow, I would say, because he has a pretty cool winter Halloween skin. Outside of that, yeah, there's nothing that can be said about him. Now we have the 6 mythic units, which are Vegeta, Sasuke, Sunjin Woo, Obito, Naruto, and Shahane. And to probably nobody's surprise, most of these units are pretty bad at this point. However, there are some that are still, I would say, relatively good. But I'll be ranking these guys in order just to kind of, have some sort of structure. But in 6th and 5th place, we have Naruto and Obito, who are both pure DPS units, which you will end up seeing. Pure DPS units do not do well with age. Obito's getting a slight edge here because he does burn versus Naruto, who, like I said, full DPS, so not much can really be said. But coming into 4th place, we have Shahane, who on the surface is actually, she's pretty bad when you compare her to Naruto and Obito in terms of damage. But the thing that she has over them is the fact that she is the only mythic unit to be 5 placements, and is also the first mythic to be 5 placements. But on top of that, she also got some usability when the Sunjin Woo dungeon came out, which is once again giving her the slight edge over the other 2 units. Now, in 3rd place, we have Sasuke, who, once again, as you look at his damage alone, is pretty bad, but like I mentioned, support abilities will last much longer, and of course, Sasuke does stun. And as I mentioned earlier with Killua, what made him good was obviously stun, and the same thing can be said with Sasuke. Not as many people really use Sasuke anymore, but people were still using Sasuke for stun for quite some time. So once again, that's giving him the slight edge over the other three. Now in second place, we have Sun Jin Woo, who has the highest damage stats out of any mythics, as well as the fact that he has an ability, which I feel like earns him a spot, especially because of the fact that he's also a viable option to use in the Sun Jin Woo dungeon if you don't have a lot of units. But the thing is that with his ability, he summons HP scaling summons, which is a lot better than obviously your typical summon, which obviously makes him pretty good. Which, as well as the fact you can turn him into Vanguards Dungeon move, which I didn't really factor in too much here because I feel like that'd be a little unfair. And then finally, we have Vegeta, who I personally feel is still the best unit for beginners, purely just because of how good his passive is and just how easy he is to evolve, which obviously the devs agree because there's a reason why you get Vegeta once you finish Namek and you're new to the game or it's your first time playing, because he can carry you for story, which you can't say with a lot of units. So personally, I feel like he earns the #1 spot for mythics, but I think some people might disagree here, but like I said, not a lot of units, especially this old, can solo story up in a decent amount. I would say newer story maps he's going to struggle, but I would say up until probably the Guilty Gear stages, he can solo pretty easily. Now, finally, we have the secrets, and I will be throwing in the one exclusive unit as well, just so we can kind of have some sort of ranking. But we have Aegis, Alucard, and then of course Haruka Rin. Like I said, Haruka is a exclusive, but I want just to kind of have some sort of rank for her. But coming in third place for this category, we have Aegis, who once again, pure DPS unit. As I mentioned, they will never age well, and that is the unfortunate thing with Aegis, is that he just fell to power creep. No support abilities of any kind really held him back. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, not much can really be said about him. Coming in second, we have Haruka Ren, who, once again, support unit, meaning she has much more longevity, and she was also the first ever buff unit. She buffs damage by 12% and it buffs range by 10%, which is very good. Obviously, isn't used nearly as much as she once was because we have some better options. However, she is still a very good option if you need a support unit. However, of course, the problem with her is she's exclusive, so not a whole lot of people have her. And then coming first to no surprise is going to be Alucard. He is still considered to be meta support even today, and that's just purely because of the fact that he has a full AoE bleed, meaning he's able to stop regen, but on top of that, he has wounded for an extra 20% damage, which, you can't really beat that. So other than the fact that he can be hard to get, he is really, I would say, the only unit who has truly withstood the test of time here. Other than Haruka, like I said, support units get much more value. But like I said, it's Alucard. Not much needs to be said about him. I mean, wounded, bleed is some of the best things you can have. Now, my official ranking for all Mythic Plus units is going to be in 9th place, Naruto, in 8th, Obito, in 7th, Shahane, in 6th, Sasuke, in 5th, Sun Jin Woo, in 4th, Aegis, and in 3rd, Vegeta, and then 2nd, Haruka, and then finally in 1st, Alucard. Like I said, this is kind of my personal opinion based on kind of just looking at the units from, whether or not you can use them today. But let me know if you guys agree. Update 0 is a little bit lackluster in terms of stuff for me to talk about, unfortunately. But I think what I will be doing is I'll be combining Update 0.5 and Update 1 and 1.1 into Episode 2, just because there are going to be more units to talk about, and Update 0.5 just didn't have a lot. But thank you guys for watching. And like I said, I hope you guys enjoy. I know, like I said, wasn't a whole lot to talk about here, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.